Hey y'all, long time and no see. It's been like 2 years since I made a video like this. Um, yeah, yeah. Anyways, but I do have a word that I wanted to share, and what's crazy is I got this word over a year ago. Yeah, like over a year ago, and just got in my head and just never shared. But it's time to share it. And the good thing about God's word is it's everlasting, it's eternal. So it's never too late to share a word that God gave you. So to just jump right into it. So like I said, a little bit over a year ago, I was at my mom's house and I was in the living room with my daughter. So in the living room, my mom has this painting of Black Jesus at the well with the Samaritan. That story. So yeah, she has a painting of that, and I've always seen it. Every time I came over, I always seen it. I just never really paid attention to it until that day when my daughter pointed at it and was like, "Dada." I'm like, "Girl, such a daddy." But basically, like I said, it's Black Jesus, and he dark skinned with locks. My daughter's dad, or my kid's dad, they got he got locks and he dark skinned. So my daughter pointed to it and was like, "Dada." I was like, "Girl, such your dada." Like, and went about my day. Like, whatever. So later that night, I'm in the living room by myself. My daughter's asleep with my mom. I'm in the living room by myself. And I'm crying because I just felt like not good enough for nothing. Like, I just felt inadequate in every area of my life. Like, and I was just crying. And I heard God say, "Give me a drink." I'm just like, what? Like, you see me crying, you give me a drink, like, huh? That was literally what I said in my head. And then God said it again, "Give me a drink." That soft, still voice. Like, so I'm like, okay. So that led me to Google the story about Jesus at the well with that Samaritan lady or whatever. So as I was reading, like, it was like an article. I went to the verse, but like it was like an article on Google that I found that kind of like explained in like more detail about that encounterment. So what stood out to me in that article was like the writer was saying how that moment was random but planned. Like it was random, but it was premeditated at the same time. And that's kind of like how my encounterment was. Like, it was random to me because, like I said, I always saw that picture when I came over to my mama's house. Like, I always saw that painting. But randomly, my daughter just this particular day pointed to it and said, "Dada." And it got me, like, to pay attention to it more. So, and it was random for that lady. Like, every day she go to the well. Like, every day she see that well. But she don't have an encounterment every day. So anyways, but it was purposeful. Like, Jesus purposely went to the well to wait for her. And I feel like God was waiting on me. Like, it was a random moment, but God was waiting on me. Like, and he used my daughter to like randomly point that picture out to me. And then later on that night, God used that picture to speak to my situation at that moment. And it was so crazy. So that stood out to me, that random but divine moment. And then another thing that stood out to me was that Jesus was actually thirsty when he was sitting at the well. Like, Jesus was God in flesh. He was fully God and fully man. So he literally was thirsty. Like, we all get thirsty. And he was in a desert. Midday, the hottest point of day, he was at the desert, sitting at the well with nothing to draw water with. So he was waiting on a lady, and then when she came, he was like, "Give me a drink." He actually needed a drink. He actually wanted a drink. And what stood out to me about that was she had everything in her hand to please God. She had everything in her hand to please Jesus. So what God was like speaking to me is like, I was feeling adequate, but I got everything that I need in my hand to please God, to change my life, and to, get purpose out of my life. Like, I already got everything in my hand. I don't, like, what am I waiting on? Like, I'm over here waiting on, like, a miraculous moment and crying to God, like, oh, like, my life is just, like, not what I want it to be. And God is like, you not using what you got in your hand. You already got what you need to please me. Like, and God, like, I'm thirsty. Like, give me a drink. Like, use what you got in your hand. And so that stood out to me. And then another thing that stood out to me was how she felt inadequate. She questioned Jesus. She was like, why are you even talking to me? Like, I'm a Samaritan and you a Jew. Jews don't like Samaritans, so why are you even talking to me? And Jesus was like, well, if you knew who it was talking to you, not only would you give me that drink that I'm asking you for, but you would then turn around and ask me to give you a drink, because the water that you're drinking from this well, you're going to thirst again. You're going to keep coming back to this well. But the water that I give you is living waters, and you're never going to thirst again. And what God was showing me is that if I use what I got in my hand to please him, he'll do miraculous things to please me. Like a water that makes you never thirst again. It's not really the water that makes you never thirst. It's the miraculous miracle about that. Like, he can do miracles just by me using what I got in my hand, literally. And I was just like, wow, God, like, wow. And then for her to feel inadequate, like, that was her first reaction. That was my first reaction when I heard that, when he said, give me a drink. I'm like, what? You see, I'm over here crying because I feel inadequate. You gonna ask me to give you a drink? And she was like, why are you talking to me? I'm a Samaritan woman. And a deeper backstory about that woman, she was an outcast. Like, she was an outcast in her community. And, she felt inadequate with life. Her first response could have just been like, all right, I'll give you a drink. But she was just like, why are you talking to me? Like, So it was just crazy. And I was just like, wow. Like, wow, 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 wow. Like, because, you don't have those moments all the time where God speaks to you so clearly like that. Like, that's why I can never act like I don't know what I know, because God just works so mysterious, miraculous, planned out, and it be so random, but it be so planned at the same time. Like, and it blew my mind. And I just feel like this was a perfect time to share this. And if you don't get nothing else from what I just said, use what you got in your hand. Stop waiting on getting more. Use what you already got. In the Bible it say those that are faithful over a few, God will make them faithful over many. So if you're not being faithful for what you already have in your hand, then you can't expect God to give you more, because you're not even using what you already have. And like, look at me, I'm recording this video on my phone, something that I have in my hand all the time, every day, and now I'm using it to please God. Like, you already have what you need in your hand to please God. And once you start using what you have in your hand, in return, God will start doing miraculous things in your life and start quenching those thirsts that only he can quench, So, love you guys. I hope this was a blessing to you as it was to me, and share it with other people who you believe can use this word. And yeah, see you soon, hopefully. Hopefully ain't another 2 years, but we'll see.